All right. Next up is our ranged DPS trays. All right. So ranged DPS are really interesting because their action is their kind of special wisdom is wisdom of the Fiend Hunter, which increases physical damage dealt by 25% and then evasion by 25% as well. So compared to the 15% HP you can get from a duelist tray, or the great magic damage decrease you can get from elder tray, the survivability here is in question, right? Because evasion is much more of a kind of RNG status. So not as important of a wisdom as the other two, which means like you kind of have options. You can go for skirmisher if you want to save money, or you can go regular if you're fine with taking a ton more damage from raid buys. So this is of course not for new people. It's for people who have gear for their ranged and have ways of essentially reducing the magic damage that they take otherwise. Right? So definitely not recommended, but I just want to point it out. We'll stick to our Fiend Hunter tray though. So Fiend Hunter, you can make it with two things. You can make it with Eagle Shot plus either Spirit Dart and Featherfoot, or Feint and Tranquilizer. Right? I vary them up. I don't use Feint or Tranquilizer, so this works for me. Now, kind of on the other side of things, right? There's a few options here. So I like to start with Focus, right? So where's Focus? Right here. Focus, you can make it with Bloodbath 3 times, or Skirmisher plus Bloodbath. Of course, I do the cheaper option because, I do it with this option because it ends up being cheaper. Right? This already makes it a 50% tray, which is odd for a, rather out of line when compared to the other trays, but it's, you only need one. All right, so we one-shot it, so this is nice. So let's talk about how to use our, all right, so we'll turn on Fiend Hunter. Let's talk about how to use Focus. So Focus is a pretty interesting action. All right, so it's essentially you gain a stack of boost, right, up to a maximum of 16, which increases the potency of just the next weapon skill by 30% per stack. All right, so we can see we can kind of build this up as we go, and it is a 2.5 second recast. So you'll see I right now have 2, and I can kind of keep just spamming this and building up to a maximum of 16, which is what we want. So how do we use this? Essentially, we want to hit our biggest hit with our very first essentially weapon skill on the boss, and that'll constitute a massive portion of our damage. All right. So let's say you hit 16 stacks rather. What do? Right. On the dancer, it can be like technical step. On a machinist, it'll be reassemble the drill, right? And then on a bard, it'll be that the whatever triple hit or whatever refulgent arrow, right? I clearly play a ton of bard, so yeah, that's kind of how it is, right? One of the other things that you can do is you can stack up the rest of the amount of trays you have with I'll just use Skirmisher for this, and Eagle Eye Shots. So Eagle Eye Shot is a really interesting skill. So let's go ahead and actually use that tray. So I'll turn on my Skirmisher, and we have this Eagle Eye Shot. So it delivers a potency attack of 80, right? So essentially it replaces your regular attacks, right? Because it is a weapon skill. And it uses any haste gear you have as well, by the way. So this increases up to 1000% the lower the target's HP. Right? So this has been mathed out where kind of the breakpoints are for each class, but in general I like to start essentially spamming Eagle Eye Shot once you reach about 60% on a boss. And I'll have like 4 or 5 trays of this because I have 6 trays available, and I'll just start spamming this once you hit 60%. Now the interesting thing about it is that very last line, it generates significant enmity upon use. Now you don't have stance, so you don't have any other way to increase the enmity outside of incense, which hopefully you're not using. But it can mean that towards the kind of ends of a boss, if people aren't tanking properly, you can take aggro of a boss. which of course we don't want to do. So how do you prevent it? First of all, wait until 60% instead of 80 or something. And then also kind of just hope your tank, keeps aggro, which shouldn't be a problem on our run that's coming up, but it's something to keep in mind. So yeah, just spamming EAS instead of your regular attack is a great way to use up essentially a bunch of tray slots with an easier to make tray, and then kind of contribute more damage to a run. So yeah.